everyone, and welcome to the next edition of Meet the Creator Picture Books for February 2025. And we are actually recording this on Valentine's Day, which, to be fair, seems very apt because today I'm going to be interviewing Vita Morrow about her fantastic book, which is called The Little Book of Love. So lovely to have you here, Vita. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm very happy to be here.
Are you happy to give us a little bit of a reading from the book so that we have an idea?
Yes, of course. It's an absolute pleasure to read from this. I have so many offerings to choose from, as there are 100 entries in the book. But I think the one that I want to share is one that's kind of personally special to me. Have the joy of having a couple of different languages in my life and in my family. And one of those languages is the language of Marathi from the state of Maharashtra in India. And I actually didn't grow up with this language in my life, but as an adult, I have an amazing teacher who has reintroduced me and helped me make my own language of origin a really big part of my everyday practice and my family. And a part of my mouth. Language is a part of our bodies. It's an embodied practice. And so, just like sort of the feeling of love and connection, language really ties into those things. So I am paging through my copy of the book, reminding myself of Annalise Straw's amazing pictures, which always make me smile. That's one of my favorite sort of parts about reading aloud and reading from, is I get to be reminded of these fantastic people and places and smiling faces she drew. So the entry of Marathi reads, in Marathi, the word for love is prem. Marathi is one of the oldest languages in the country of India. It is most frequently heard in a big state called Maharashtra, and there are 42 different ways to speak it. Maharashtra begins with the word maha, which means great. And in the book, there's a picture below of a kid and a grown-up rolling some little sweets. And the little one says, Mama. In Marathi, when parents want to share how proud they are of their child, they might exclaim, Goda majam sanula, which means my child is so cute. And in the illustrations, Annalise has a wonderful piggyback rider on their grown-up and some flowers. And every page comes with a little prompt or a wondering for our reader. And the one on the Marathi page says, what is something you are proud of? And how do you share your pride? And I'll answer it. Something I'm proud of course, is this book. I'm just so proud. It was a big undertaking and also kind of a big surprise. And how do I share my pride of the book? Well, it's reading it aloud like this and talking to people about it and walking into shops and finding it on the shelf or in a display, and just celebrating that achievement and that big moment. So, yeah, thanks.
That's lovely. I mean, this is, of course, the third book in this series. The others being the Little Book of Joy and the Little Book of Words That Matter. I'm very lucky in that I have all three of them. They're all fantastic. From what I've seen of your experience up to date, you were probably the perfect person to write this book. So can you tell us a little more about that, about what you've been doing work-wise and how your experience has fed into it?
Oh, that's so nice of you to say. It really was a natural fit for me, this book. I had a book idea that I had shared with my publishing friends at Magic Hat, and it was for a book about gestures of affection and admiration all around the world. And after I'd shared my idea, they said, well, funny you should say that. We have an idea of a book we want to make that is very much that. And I'd gotten to know Little Book of Joy and Little Book of Words That Matter previously, and they said, we want to add and make this a trio with the Little Book of Love. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is in fact just a complete dovetail or intersection with this idea of something I'd wanted to do. I think I'd been looking around at the kind of work I was making as a writer and illustrator and artist and the work I was enjoying. And a lot of it had to do with authentic human connection. And part of that had to do with coming out of the pandemic, but also just entering into um, just a new stage of social growth in the community that I live in the family that I have, and in the workplace. People were asking each other different kinds of questions, asking to know each other in different ways. And what I interpreted that as is people asking for real, authentic human connection. And I was thinking about where we learn those things. Lots of behaviors learn behavior that we learn when we're young. And one of the ways young people learn some of those opportunities and access points for authentic connection are through those loving relationships that they first have in their families and communities and neighborhoods. And so I really wanted an opportunity to kind of sink into that and learn a lot about what that looks like for lots of different people. Because even though it's different for everyone, there's a part of it that is a connected, kind of unified thread. And so I really just relished an opportunity to do some research and learning and listening, and then figuring out, often sometimes a collection book like this is sort of like sewing. You kind of gather all your materials and then you kind of stitch them together. So that research is sort of picking out all the fabrics and string and needles and information that I'll need texturally, and then understanding the best way to string them all together.
I love that.
Well,
That's an amazing analogy. So, my next question was going to be, now, obviously, this has taken a lot of research, this one. And do you enjoy that process of research? And how long did it take? Because, this is 100 different countries that you've covered here.
yes, thank you for noticing. I love research. I think a younger version of myself, my childhood self, uh, learned and acknowledged that too, that I really love research. When I was in maybe fourth or fifth grade, we had a big research. It was the first time we were doing a big research project. And I had been really like anticipating it. It felt like an important learning milestone as a student and something a place to kind of prove myself. And I did a research project on manatees. They're a big aquatic animal, a mammal, and they're a sort of a rare kind of a creature. They're not as prevalent as they once were, and it was an opportunity to uplift something um, big that actually only had a small presence. And in the hallway of my school, I made a giant life-size manatee, and I just felt so proud and connected to the idea of um, taking time to really deeply understand something, to listen and learn, and then also to create something out of my learning. I sort of really liked the balance of that
Mm-hmm.
research for an item or an object or a product or a tangible, something that you can share and enjoy with other people, and that has a existence outside of just the process of research. This book took about a year. It was a tighter turnaround for writing. Writing was actually really a tight squeeze, but the research I was able to kind of spend some time um, extending myself and sending out some tentacles. One of the ways and patterns of habit I enjoy in research are first person interviews and narratives. And for a book like this, because it was so many, 100, I thought, okay, well, I don't have time to sit down and talk to 100 different people and find the right people. I leaned heavily on surveys. And I sent a survey to lots and lots of people. I asked them to send it to as many people as they felt that they wanted to, with just 3 questions. And the first question was about the languages in your life. The second question was about what you loved when you were a kid. And the third question was about, is there anything related between the two of those? And it was fascinating. And one of my sort of most inspiring responses was from a friend who shared the language that he grew up with, which is different than the language of the country where he lives now. and that when he was a kid, what he loved was football. And he felt like that was actually the language that he had playing football in the yard or on the pitch was kind of magical. It was another way of communicating. He felt always really loved and cared for, and like he was getting a lot of attention um, playing and playing with his friends. And so that made it a huge priority for me to include sports and play in this book and remember that when we're moving our bodies and playing and being social, that actually is another kind of language of love. And so, sort of along these lexiconical languages, there's also this parallel thread of kind of gestural and lived experience languages that I hope connect all the different languages in the books. As people were sharing with me, preparing things with family, being outside in nature, cooking, riding their bikes, brushing their hair, having their picture taken, drawing, painting, going to puppet shows, traditions, festivals, new babies. These were the things people were sharing with me in tandem with the languages that were a part of their lives. And that was really a kind of an interesting turning point for me and really informed the shape and the texture of this book.
And that definitely shows because I know the book's about love. So you'd expect it to be very warm. And it is, it's like a hug in a book. It is just so lovely to read. Were there any customs that really spoke to you?
Oh, my favorites. Okay. I Something I love discovering in this book is the interconnectedness of all of us. And primarily that came out first in understanding the movement of language and people. And that was why we organized the book in kind of a timeline where you can see how language and the paths of the turn of the globe really correspond because as people move, they take language with them. And I also found that with a lot of the customs and expressions of love, they also follow us as peoplehood as we move around the world. And so there are lots of sort of repetitions or repeats or familiarities, themes around milk and rice and visiting people and holidays and festivals and family life cycle events. I think some of the ones that really speak out to me are the ones that are about food, because that's definitely a language of love that I speak and enjoy. And even simple ones, ones where it's about the exchange between um, a guest and a host, either a host providing the hospitality of food or a guest bringing with them the opportunity to be a part of that, bringing two loaves of bread to visit, or bringing sweets when you come to someone's house, or remembering that they're there and to accept those gifts. Sometimes accepting gifts as an adult is something I'm continually relearning how to do. And I actually really appreciated the entries where I got to talk about what it means to be gracious and accept gifts when people have you to their home and leave chocolate by the door, and the expectation is that you take it, really taking it and honoring that gesture. I really love those.
And an element of the book that I absolutely loved is those questions that are at the end each time, because I think they are so brilliant for opening up discussions with children. So, was that, did your teaching background help you out with those, I'm guessing?
Oh my gosh, yes. My career as an educator is something that always comes up in my work. It's like once a teacher, always a teacher. You
Yeah.
just can't undo any of that great learning and observing and asking questions. And one of my favorite parts of being in the classroom and working with young people is asking questions, asking that question, tell me about your drawing, or tell me about your story, or tell me about what happened last night. Um, Making observations together with young people and inviting them to do the same. When we started the book, we'd actually been writing for a little bit of an older audience. And I got about 15% of the way through, and we all had a look at it and decided, let's make it younger. And so in doing that, it actually opened up this opportunity to speak directly to the reader or listener and ask these kind of early childhood questions
Yeah.
that help center the writing and the pictures on the reader, on the explorer of the book. And that was really fun. And I actually think it makes it for great interaction. I wrote them for young people in mind, but they're often voiced by the adult kids are sharing a book with, or peers or siblings or relatives. And it's another opportunity for those people to have that one-on-one or small group connection and also share something about themselves. Sometimes sharing a book is passive listening, and sometimes it's reciprocal sharing, and it gives an opportunity to do that if you want to do that. Um, or to just remind young people too that when you read, you should ask questions.
Yeah.
Reading is
Yeah.
meaning making, and one of the ways we make meaning is to ask questions. So the educator in me, the reading specialist in me is saying, always be sure you're asking a question, checking that you understand, that things make sense, that you're making a connection to yourself. And so hopefully I'm getting to model 100 ways to also ask questions and remember that you're, as a reader or listener, meant and you have every right to be connected and ask questions of what you're reading.
I think for me, I mean, I'm looking forward to reading it with my granddaughter, and she is young, she's 4, but she will get a lot out of it and a lot out of the questions. But I also, as you say, I thought, wouldn't this be great to read with a group, with a small group of children, to get them all talking to each other and sharing things? And those questions are just perfect for it, absolutely perfectly pitched.
Ah, thank
So
you.
we are nearly at the end of our time, but as you did yourself, I've got to give a shout out to Annalise Draw's wonderful illustrations. Aren't they just so fabulous? You
They're
know,
incredible.
they are
Incredible.
so cute, colourful, diverse. They're just everything. Everything. Did you get to see them whilst you were writing, or did that come afterwards?
Thank you for singing her praises. Illustrators really are sometimes these silent partners, and people forget just what a huge contribution and really like tandem approach they lend to storytelling and books for kids. Annalise as an amazing collaborator and contributor, and she's really tied this cohesive trio of books together in a way that makes them really like a family, which makes me feel really good. It makes the book feel really included with its other peers. I had the really unique opportunity on this project to give illustrative notes and context for every single entry. So every entry went to Annalise with a mood board that I made and with kind of ideas or prompts to help inspire her. And one of my favorite parts of doing that is that then every time art would come back in, it would be a completely wonderful surprise because I already know that she would have had a sense of what was in my head and where I was imagining while I was writing. So we were already kind of in the same neighborhood. And then she would just be able to like plant the seed and come up with something special. And they were just so cute and endearing, which is really the flavor and the tone that we wanted in this. And she made her own special and important contribution to the entry on Korean, which is a language that's special to her. And that was really meaningful. I love um, when illustrators that I work with really get to have an autonomous experience of ownership inside of our shared storytelling.
Well, as I say, I can't praise them enough. I loved the illustrations and also the text. And also the text. I loved the book as a whole. So unfortunately, we have actually run out of time, which is such a shame. But thank you so much for coming and talking about the book. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. That means so much. And happy reading and happy hugging.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the middle grade edition of Meet the Creator for February 2025. And today I'm going to be speaking to debut children's author Ella Dove about her amazing book, which is called How to Roller Skate with One Leg. So, welcome, Ella. It's really nice to meet you.
Oh, lovely to meet you too.
Thank you so much. Are you happy to give us a little bit of a reading, to give us a bit of a flavour of the book, please?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, sounds good. So I was thinking I would read you the prologue of How to Roller Skate with One Leg. So, prologue. On the day my life changed forever, there was going to be a maths test. It was a crisp October morning, a month into year 7. My best friend Sophie met me and our other pal Vita at the bus stop as usual. Her dad drove her to school every day, but we liked to go into school together. Could you two try and smile? Sophie nudged me with her elbow. She was holding her phone out in front of her, making a TikTok as usual. This one was going to be a reel of her day. That is, if she could get away with sneakily using her phone at school. How's this? I switched on the biggest beaming smile I could manage. It made my cheeks ache. Vita laughed and Sophie rolled her eyes. This only encouraged me. Oh, Soph, of course. I did a little bow in her direction. How could I not be happy about failing another maths test? I'm ecstatic. Over the moon. In fact, this might be actually the best day of my entire life so far. I started to skip, my feet bouncing along the pavement in huge exaggerated steps, my wild curls flying in all directions. I threw my arms out dramatically. Careful, Maya, Vita said, always the worrier. What a beautiful, wonderful day, I yelled. Behind me, I could hear Sophie laughing. Okay, fine, point made, Sophie said. Maths tests are the worst. You are ridiculous, Maya, Vita added with a chuckle. Do you know that? I grinned. Just trying to help my best friend achieve her ultimate dream of going viral. You are just too thoughtful, Soph smiled back at me. Vita had joined our primary school in year 3, but Sophie and I had been best friends since we were 4, when I grabbed her hand on our first day and demanded she sat next to me. She said I chose her because I could tell she was scared of school. I said it's because I was jealous of her glittery lunchbox and strawberry-shaped pot with her cut-up fruit inside. In fact, I pestered Mum until she bought me the exact same ones. Sophie and I had a plan. We'd finish school together, maybe go to the same university, and we'd live together one day too. When we had our own place, we'd get a pet, maybe a rabbit, and we'd eat pizza every night. Ham and pineapple for me, even though she thought that was weird. Margarita for her because she liked to play safe. I couldn't wait to finish school and hang out every day in the real world together. But age 12, that felt like years away. I sometimes wished time would speed up, mainly because when school was over, there would be no more maths. Have you actually done any revision at all? Vita asked. How dare you? I put my hands on my hips, pretending to be outraged. I've opened the textbook loads of times. Opened it, sure, Sophie said. But did you read it? Soph, you're sounding a lot like Mrs. Brainport right now. I turned my walk and my voice into our maths teacher's, bouncing up and down on my tippy toes just like she did. Now then, everyone, have I ever told you just how absolutely fascinating algebra is? It's almost as beautiful and amazing as probability, and we all know how wonderful that module was. As Sophie giggled, I became even more dramatic. I threw back my shoulders, lifting my face to shout loudly about percentages and calculating the area of a triangle. Totally caught up in the impression, I bounced across the road, still being Mrs. Brainport. I didn't look. Sophie's laughter suddenly became a shriek. Stop! Vita yelled. A white van was speeding towards me. The screech of brakes pierced the air as I dived, frantic to get out of the way. But I was too late. The driver was going too fast to stop. The seconds seemed to slow as the van's bonnet came towards me. For a moment I thought I'd somehow made it. But then I heard a sickening crunching noise and felt white-hot pain burning through my right leg. I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. My school bag was in the middle of the road. My maths textbook had fallen out. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. As the pain intensified, the world swam in and out of focus. I closed my eyes, faintly aware that somewhere in the distance someone was screaming. It was me.
I've got to say, it is such an amazing prologue. It takes you straight into the story. I absolutely loved it, really did.
Oh, thank you.
So after the accident, Maya, your main protagonist, she becomes an amputee.
Yes.
So can you tell us why you were inspired to write this story?
Yes, well, I'm an amputee myself. So I lost my leg at the age of 25, which was about 8 years ago now, which seems crazy. I lost my leg in a different way to Maya. I had a crazy freak accident where I went out running and I tripped over, and I had a severe fracture and essentially dislocated my knee and cut the blood supply off to my foot. So it was a different accident. But obviously, I went through all the emotions that Maya goes through in the book. You know, the shock and the disbelief that this has actually happened to you. And then thinking, well, how is life ever going to be the same again? And I was thinking, actually, for a young amputee, there are so many challenges. I mean, there are as an adult, of course, but for a younger amputee, going back to school, even a simple thing like going to school every day, is such a huge challenge to face. And so I wanted to kind of explore those emotions, but also to give people hope and to show that, you know, for young readers, whether they've had a serious accident or whether they're just having other challenges at school or, you know, other situations in their lives, that actually you can overcome those things, and that, you know, there is hope and you can find joy again.
Well, there was so much of Maya's thoughts that really did hit home with me, and one in particular was the bit when she's talking about the fact that she resents someone calling her inspirational, which is something that's often said, isn't it, of disabled people, because she feels she's got no choice but to carry on.
Yes.
So, you know, she's not inspirational, she's just doing what she has to do. And was this a point you felt very strongly about making?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, it's happened to me a lot. And, you know, I think when something that traumatic happens to you, a lot of the time people don't really know what to say and they don't know how to react. So I had all different kinds of reactions. You know, I had a sort of family friend who, I was in my wheelchair and she just came up to me and pinched my cheeks like this, like, oh, I'm so proud of you. And I kind of, obviously she meant well, but at the time I was thinking, huh, what? What are you doing? You know, and people just behave in very odd ways. I had some friends that couldn't even come to the hospital because they just couldn't bear the thought of seeing me. And yeah, the inspirational word is one that gets thrown around a lot. And you know, people do say it in a very well-meaning way, but to say you're inspirational when you haven't actually particularly done anything inspirational. You know, it's one thing to call someone inspirational if they're a Paralympian and they've achieved, you know, they've got a gold medal, or someone who's climbed Everest, or, you know, with a disability. But if it's just kind of a throwaway comment, it did used to affect me, because I thought, well, what have I done really, you know, to be inspirational? So yes, that was definitely something I wanted to kind of explore in the book.
And it definitely does that to Maya, doesn't it? Because she really feels as though she's done nothing,
Mm,
you know, what's going on, sort of thing.
mm.
I think the other thing that struck me very much is that sadly we've still got a really long way to go with disability representation in all books, let alone children's books.
Mm.
Is that something you'd agree with?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's still really, really hard to find to find books, I mean, particularly when it comes to children's literature, there are picture books. There are more picture books now than there used to be, for sure. But in this kind of middle grade space, it is really difficult to find, and it is getting better. I kind of, yeah, different disabilities being covered by various sort of disabled influencers that I know of who are writing in this space now, which is great. But yeah, I think we're on the right track, but I definitely think there's still quite a way to go, for sure.
We've got an awful lot still to do in order to get us up to equality, haven't we? Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And also just showing disability not just sort of for the sake of it. So, obviously with Maya, she's an amputee, but that's not what defines her. She's strong, she's funny, she's loyal, she's a great friend. And I wanted to kind of show that, yes, she's got one leg, but that's not her whole personality. That's just kind of one aspect of who she is.
Definitely not. Her personality is amazing. I love her dress sense. I love the way she's out there. She's an amazing character, absolutely fabulous character.
Thank you.
And I think you make a very good point in that if you are watching or listening to this interview, guys, don't think that this is if you like, a serious, worthy book. And I've got to say it like that because yes, it's about the fact that Maya has this accident and how she copes with it, but it's also very funny.
Oh,
It's
thank you very much.
very funny. It's just a joy to read. And I think the thing that makes it so much of a joy for me is the friend relationships that she's
Mm,
got, because they were so real to me and so funny. But what I also loved was the fact that you made the point that no matter how upsetting the trauma someone is going through is, it doesn't make your own problems any less valid.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's a real aspect to the story, isn't there, where one of her friends feels, oh, I can't burden her anymore.
Mm.
And is that something you came across yourself when you had your accident?
Oh, I think definitely friends would kind of not tell me things that to them were, big things going on in their own lives. Whether that's a kind of relationship breaking up or, losing a job or whatever it might be. There were definitely things that people felt, oh no, I can't bother Ella with that. She's just lost her leg. We can't she's got bigger things to worry about. But actually, I just wanted to be treated normally, and I wanted to have normal conversations that weren't about hospitals and medical appointments and surgery. I actually just wanted to have conversations and feel that I was involved in my friends' lives in the same way that I was before. Because really, I was the same person, and Maya's the same person. You change slightly because you've gone through this huge thing, and perhaps you become more resilient and determined. I mean, I know I certainly did, and stubborn actually. But at the same time, you are the same person, and you still want to be treated in the same way by your friends. So yes, I think that's really important.
I think the other thing, obviously, as somebody that's not middle grade, I very much identified with Maya's mum,
Mm,
who has got so overprotective, and she just wants to wrap her up in cotton wool and not let her do anything.
mm.
And I really felt that you described that so well, and I'm so happy that she went back to work.
Yes, yeah.
All through the book, I was like, "You need to get back to work. You need to." Sort of but it rang very true for me because I know as a parent, that's what you'd want to do. You just want to
Mm.
protect your kids, don't you? And that's not
Mm.
always the best thing, has to be said.
Yeah, I mean, after my accident, I went back. I couldn't live in my flat in London. I couldn't manage on my own. So I went back and lived with my parents, which obviously at 25, when you're, living in London independently, you don't think you're going to do. But certainly that was the case for my parents. They did just want to kind of, obviously, love me and support me and be there for me. And yeah, I did see them struggling with that as well. So again, that's where that was drawn from.
So, because I enjoyed the story so much, I've got to ask, are you now going to write any more children's books?
Well, yes, there is a book too. So Maya will be having another adventure, which is, yes, it's with Hachette Children's again, and it's coming out in 2026. So can't say too much at this point, but I have written a first draft of it. So yes, she will be having another adventure.
Oh, I am so pleased to hear that because she's such a brilliant character. She really is. And the friend set, as I say, I'm not ready to lose Vita because it's so lovely.
Yeah,
But I'm really happy that we're going to be able to read about her again. So that's
yeah.
very good news. Well, we have just about run out of time, but I have to say, I really enjoyed the book and I'm very much looking forward to reading the next one. So thank you for coming to talk to us about it.
Thank you for having me.